me go ahead and say on his behalf, he did not bring coffee because he's a one-man show. He's constantly trying to stay up. He's his marketing director. He fills internet orders. He goes out and speaks in the public. He does a bunch of stuff. But he brought some stickers and I think maybe a coupon code. I'll let Eric tell you. But welcome, Eric Hadley. We've got your 6th coffee.
Have you ever touched a hot pan and gotten burnt? I think it's safe to say that everybody in life has touched the hot pan and gotten burnt by something and made a bad decision. Looking back in retrospect, don't you wish you had somebody there to have your back? Somebody with wisdom, experience, that could keep you from experiencing the pain? Good morning, my name's Eric Hadley. I'm the CEO and founder of Got Your 6 Coffee Company. I wish someone had my back 7.5 years ago when I started Got Your 6 Coffee Company, because I made several decisions that I've gotten burnt from. I'll tell you a little more about that here in a second, but first, let me start off by telling you a little about who I am. I'm a small town country boy from Paris, Texas. Back in the day, I spent my Sundays in church, played football in the fall, I did fishing in the spring, I dated the high school valedictorian, and I spent my summers at scout camp working towards the rank of Eagle. Growing up, life was a little bit different than what it is today. When I was growing up, I was taught to respect our veterans. I was taught that first responders were our heroes. I was taught that when you had a neighbor in need, you lent a hand to help them out. 8.5 years ago, I found myself in a bad situation. Before getting into the world of coffee, I did a variety of things. I graduated high school in '95. I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, went through the Army's early commissioning program where I competed against other college students for a scholarship. Ultimately, I got one. Went to school at New Mexico Military Institute, but before I signed the dotted line for my Army scholarship, I asked the question, can I do armor or artillery? I'm enamored by big pieces of equipment. And unfortunately back then, there was no guarantee, and knowing that there was a big push for infantry, while I love camping, fishing, and all that kind of stuff, I didn't see myself doing that as a career. So I ended up going to New Mexico Military Institute for 2 years, which is a military junior college. Transferred to Maine Maritime Academy up in Castine, Maine, which was a shell shock. You know, growing up in Texas and all of a sudden you're in Maine where you walk from here to the prison in the winter and your beard freezes, it's cold. While at Maine Maritime Academy, I competed for a Navy scholarship, got one. 3.5 years later, I graduated. I was graduated from college. I commissioned United States Naval Officer, and then I also had my engineering license, which is through the United States Coast Guard. I was geared up to go into the maritime industry. The job that I chose coming out of college was to go with Military Sealift Command, which, if you're not familiar, Military Sealift Command does armed forces logistics afloat all across the world. I spent the next 12 years traveling all over the world. I was averaging 10 months a year deployed overseas. I've been to 59 different countries, and every time we pulled into port, when you're away from family, what do you want to do? You want to connect with friends and family. So I found myself in a lot of different coffee shops, sucking up their Wi-Fi, connecting with friends and family back home. Then I met somebody. I had always told myself that if I met somebody, I would make the transition shoreside. I did. I resigned my commission in 12, went to work for the McHenry Management Group as a senior engineering consultant for the United States Coast Guard. I was living in Aberdeen, Maryland, working at the Coast Guard Yard in Baltimore, which if you've seen recently, the bridge that got hit by the ship, traveled that twice a day. The Coast Guard Yard's right on the other side of that bridge. Fast forward, and if you can remember back in 10 and 11, you had sequestration, government funding issues, and all that kind of stuff. Thought I was going to lose my contract, so through my network, made 3 phone calls. Next thing you know, I was working for Transocean in the offshore oil industry, doing 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. I was freshly married. I had a little one on the way. And the cool part about Transocean is you can live anywhere. They fly you to and from work. So ultimately, I found myself moving to Springfield, Missouri, because my now ex-wife, her family is from here, which it was the purpose of that was to give her a support system while I was doing 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. First year in with Transocean was amazing. Everything that I envisioned it to be. I had taken a step back in my career to make a lateral transition over as an engineer. First year, I had 3 promotions. Has anybody seen the movie Deepwater Horizon? I had 3 promotions, gotten myself into the position of senior subsea supervisor as a trainee, and I found myself on the Deepwater Nautilus, which is the sister rig to the Deepwater Horizon. I can tell you what you see on the movie is spot on. So much so that my now, after getting divorced, my wife now, I was still working offshore in the oil rig, and the movie came out. She saw it and quickly told me that I'm not doing that anymore, but we all know how that goes. First year in was great. Then you had the downturn of the oil industry, and I spent the next 3.5 years watching large numbers of my coworkers getting laid off. When I hired on with Transocean, they had 97 drill ships and drill rigs, each with a crew of 500 to 700 people. Fast forward to June of 2016, on my birthday nonetheless, all of a sudden my phone rang, and I answered it, and it was HR department from Houston. An Indian fellow got on, and as soon as I heard his voice, I knew it was about to happen. I got laid off. Oddly enough, having never been laid off, never been fired, when I hung up that phone, it was a huge relief. 3.5 years of watching friends and family getting laid off wears on you. 3.5 years of fighting to keep your job wears on you. When I got laid off in 2016, just like with the prison system, you're going to have the warden and everybody else, right? Well, as a senior subsea supervisor, you have senior subsea supervisor and everybody else. When I got laid off, the first rounds of layoff, it's easy. You just cut the fat, the people that are lazy and don't do anything. Then you cut more fat, more, then you're cutting muscle, then you're scraping bone. When I got laid off, the senior subsea supervisor of the department was full of nothing but senior subsea supervisors. So here I am in Springfield, Missouri. I just got laid off. I've spent my entire career on the ocean. I'm on the backside of a divorce. I've got 50% custody of my son, and I'm landlocked in the middle of nowhere. I could easily pick up the phone and have a job any coast, anywhere in the world, as long as it's on water. But if I did that, I would lose custody of my son. She's not going to move with me. So 7 months of exhausting my savings to keep the lights on, trying to find a job local. It got to the point where I had to tap into my retirement to keep the lights on. When I did that, I told myself, I can't do this just to keep the lights on. I have to use it as a force multiplier to do something good. And I'll pause there for a second. Going back to like 2008, a variety of things started to happen that just bothered me. They ate at me, and I'm the type of person I want to make a difference. I lost my uncle. Sorry. I lost my favorite uncle, a Navy veteran. He passed with cancer. And I know the VA system is different now, but back then I saw firsthand what the VA system did to him and how they killed him. I started to see things within our society where society doesn't want to support our first responders. They started to demonize them and make us look bad. Before starting Got Your Six, I could point to 13 different people that thought suicide was the answer. So here I was trying to figure out something to do. I was actually taking a class at Missouri State through their Small Business Technology Development Center, and we had just gotten through with the coffee break. I'm sitting there and they came back and they said, if you're going to start a business, what would it be? And what the intention of that was, they're going to pull market research and give it to you so that you could continue on with the course. Well, at that point, I was big into, and I've been big into, overlanding, camping, and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a joke between my wife and I. When I moved here in 2013, I was the only truck running around with a rooftop tent, awning, jerry cans, all that kind of stuff. Everywhere I went, I had people asking me about it. But if I was going to start a business, back then it would have been something in the overland space. But knowing that the overland space is such a niche market, I doubted that they'd be able to pull anything substantial, so I said, just give me coffee. Little did I know that would change my life. The next day, they hand a stack of papers to me, and I start to go through the numbers. Back then, in 2016, 400 million cups of coffee are consumed in the United States every day. 400 million cups of coffee. This is where the engineer took over. Why can't I use the power of coffee to brew better days for our country? And so Got Your Six Coffee Company was born. So to answer a couple questions about how I got burnt. Mistake number one, and if you're out there, I would love to inspire you to, if you have any desire, start that business. Go out there and do something. What I've learned, and this is my personal opinion, is that the system is designed to make it so that you go to school, you pay attention, you follow the duck in front of you, you go to college, follow the duck in front of you, you get a job, you follow the duck in front of you, so that the government can turn around when you get paid, before you even receive your check, the government's taking their money. There's so many things that a business owner can do that is different than somebody who's just getting a paycheck. Mistake number one, I started Got Your Six Coffee Company in an emotional state. Like I said, I was on the backside of a divorce. I had 13 people that I could point to that had committed suicide. I'd lost my uncle. I lost my job. And so I think everybody can understand it, especially the individuals sitting here. You have to remove emotion from the decisions that you're making. You know, if somebody's in there and an inmate assaults you, you can't respond emotionally, you have to respond logically. And it's the same thing in life with business. Mistake number two, I started my business giving 100% of the net profit to support the mission. Let me tell you something I've learned. Does anybody know what the national average is for philanthropic efforts from businesses in the United States? 10%? It's actually 0.08 to 1.2%. There are a handful of companies out there that do 100%. Has anybody ever purchased Newman's Own salad dressing? They do 100%. Here's what I've learned about that. When you're wealthy and you're getting close to the end of the year and you have a bunch of money and the government's about to tax you, it's real easy to take that money, throw it out of business, because that's a tax write-off. And when you throw enough money out of business, it can be self-sustained where it hires employees, takes care of people, and does prove a mission. I started off doing 100% with nothing, and that hurt me. It took 4 years for me to realize that. When I started, I had somebody else roasting, packaging, shipping, and I was focused on the mission. I could show you a laundry list of stuff that I've been able to accomplish with nothing. We've put 60 first responders and veterans through 2 separate training courses. The reason I do that is to give them high caliber training. It's a way to say thank you to them for their service. It's a way for them to have something that they can take back to better serve their community, and I also use the event as a way to commemorate the life of a fallen hero. I've done everything from that to buying a leather recliner for a Marine Corps vet who had gone through surgery and he couldn't sleep because he couldn't lay down. There's a whole laundry list of stuff. That mistake didn't really bear its head until years later when I started to take everything in-house to do the packaging, the roasting, the shipping. To do all those things, you need equipment. And when you're giving away all your money and you find yourself in a position where you need to buy expensive equipment, you don't have it, that's a mistake. So I found that out right before COVID, several months before COVID, I should say. I had a company reach out to me. They said they wanted to put my product on their website. Great sales. As I went down the rabbit hole with them, I found out that they're actively email marketing 300,000 people a month. Once again, the engineer took over. If 1% became a customer, back then, at that point, the average customer was buying 2 bags of coffee. 1% is going to equal 6,000 bags of coffee. And as Sean said, a mistake, I'm a one-man bandstand. I didn't focus on the business in the beginning, and I'm still paying that price. But as a one-man bandstand, when I took over, the amount money that I had, I could only invest in certain equipment. So my production capabilities, I could only package 274 bags in an 8-hour shift. 6,000 bags divided by 274 is 29 days worth of work, and I'm still doing all the marketing, the accounting, the sweeping, doing it all. And then COVID happened. COVID for me was a blessing in disguise. It forced me to stop doing the mission. It forced me to sit at my dining room table with my wife on the other side doing her job, with the 2 of us talking over each other, and I couldn't do the mission. So I was like, well, I know I have issues with the website, so I'll go teach myself back into the website, and I fixed those problems. I was like, well, if I'm going to do the back end, I might as well do the front end. If you look at the website as it is now, what you see was designed on my phone with me zooming in, editing photo after photo, and stacking them and piecing them together. There's a thing I had a mentor tell me recently, a mistake that business owners make. Most business owners are husband and wife team or individuals. They have an idea, they know where they're at, they know where they're going, they start down that journey, and then when they hit an obstacle, they step off the path to go figure that out. He calls that procrastination loop. It could take time to figure that out. I'm proof of that. I'm not an accountant. It took me 9 months to figure out accounting. And when I started, I put the website together. I had the website recording all the information. The information was getting data dumped to QuickBooks. I knew that there was a flow, and I thought, great, I've got my bucket collecting all the information. When I get the opportunity, I'll go figure out the bucket. Years into it, when I started to do that, I realized things weren't communicating right. I paid lots of money and spent probably 50, 60 hours talking to people, tech support from one, tech support from the other, trying to get it figured out. I finally got to the point where I scrapped it all. And I just started a new QuickBooks, and I literally printed out every single order that I had from the beginning and manually entered it in so that I could learn the process. That took me 9 months, and that's just one of the things. That procrastination loop, what he says, and if you're out there thinking about a business, I would highly encourage you, when you hit an obstacle, go find a subject matter expert and either invest in their services or find a way to collaborate with them so that you're not doing that and you can keep moving forward. Mistake number 3, I was hyper-focused on the mission. I didn't get to focus on the business, and it wasn't until COVID when all that happened. COVID, like I said, for me was a blessing. It forced me to stop. I started to solve all these problems. After doing the website and several other things, I was like, well, what's the next problem? Well, yeah, I've got this production issue. I can't package a whole lot of coffee. So I've got a 40 by 48 detached garage, and I just started bootstrapping it. Little by little, I've sold more guns than I care to admit to. I've sold 10,000 pound lift. I've literally sold tons of stuff. Got Your Six Coffee Company wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my wife. After getting divorced, still doing the 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, instead of coming home and sitting in the house, the same house where she's sitting, I just grabbed my son. I went down to Dallas, spent my time with my best friend from high school. Best friends doing what they do, they try and get you back on the horse. Because of him and his wife, they introduced me to my wife. My wife's background is marketing and sales in Dallas. She's been doing this for years, and in Dallas, she was the top 3 salesperson. Dallas is the number 4 market in the country. So when fast forward, we get married, she moves up here. She went to work for Fox. Didn't take her long. Well, Fox merged with Nexstar, bought out Fox, merged Nexstar, or merged Fox and Color 10. And next thing I know, she's doing sales. Didn't take her long to become number 1 in the area. And when you're good at something, next thing you know, they moved her over to management. Well, the great part about sales is in commission. In sales, you get commission, and if you're good at it, you get a lot of commission. My wife's good. When they moved her over to, well, with her being good, sales commission, that meant extra revenue that I could use little by little to bootstrap and get Got Your Six moving forward. Fast forward, they move her over to management, and when you go to management, they take away all your commissions, and that equated to a 65% pay cut for her. So here I am in the middle of this project with my pants down around my ankles going, how am I going to finish this? So I had to go out and get an investor. Things that I didn't realize within that realm is that the investor and he and I have history. We, within 3 hours of conversation, we had everything agreed upon. What I didn't take into consideration out of lack of experience is that once you take that and you hand it to the lawyers, 2 years later, I finally received funding. Well, when you go through to set up your business plan, projections, pro forma, all the things that you do to plan out, budgets, I knew that this much money was going to get me this much stuff because that's what I planned for. 2 years later, this much money got me this much stuff. You know, I had bought a roaster and I had budgeted so that the stovepipe for the exhaust and the gas line, when I finally went and had the money and went to go purchase that stovepipe. It was 4 times the expense of what I had budgeted for. So, wasn't aware of that. During COVID, like I said, I spent my time doing the fix it, build it, renovate it phase, and I finished that. I'm happy to report that now I'm at a point where I can package 8,000 bags in an 8-hour shift.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you. Going back to the philanthropic effort, and Sean made mention to this, and I'll caveat this, I'm not bashing anybody. I'm just bringing education in hopes that it'll inspire and get you to think about something. The average company does anywhere from 0.08 to 1.2. The elephant in the room for me is, as you guessed, Black Rifle Coffee Company. Black Rifle is 2 years older than I am. 2017, they went viral when Starbucks made the claim that they were going to hire 10,000 refugees. Within hours, Evan was online, featured on Fox saying, why not hire 10,000 homeless vets? In that interview on Fox, he's quoted that saying that you have the opportunity to vote with your dollars to solve real world problems, the context of veteran homelessness. That was in 2017. Fast forward to 2021. If you're not familiar, Black Rifle went public. When you go public, all your information's public. You just got to know where to look. I can tell you, if you go to their website at the very bottom, it's reworded several times, investor presentation, whatever. But in 2020, when they went public, I went looking and I found a 57-page investor document that listed everything, to include their P&L sheet, their profit and loss sheet. On page 7, they talk about their philanthropic efforts. That year, they gave $1.2 million to charity, which 1.2 is a lot, but let's put it in a context. That year, they also made $230 million in sales. $92 million of that was profit. They spent $32.7 million on marketing. When you take that and you compare it to what they gave, that's 0.58% below the average. My vision is to do something different, and I'm questioning whether I'm doing it right to begin or what, but the national average, like I said, is 0.8 to 1.2. I know that 100% is not good because you can't grow a business when you're giving it all away. So with the investor, I've restructured. I'm now doing 25% of the net profit to support the mission, which is 25%, 25 times more than what the national average is. That 1.2%, does anybody have a guess on which company in the United States gives the most? 2021, Microsoft gave 1.2%, which equated to $2.6 billion to charity. This year, Black Rifle's on track to do anywhere between 430 and 460 million. 25% of that, what could we do with it? We could end veteran homelessness. From 2021, 92 million in profit. I could sit here and say if I had 92 million in profit, I could end veteran homelessness in about a year and a half. And I'll put that into perspective. And I think you guys already understand this. You have the individual who just becomes homeless and is trying to fight to get out of being homeless. And then the unfortunate reality is you've got the bottom of the barrel. Doesn't matter what you do to help them, they're a lost cause. Somewhere in the middle to the top, we can help. My vision is to use the power of coffee to brew better days for this country. I can't do it alone. Trust me, I've tried. I'm beyond excited because the end of last year, I finished out the fix it, build it, renovate it phase, and I'm now working on the marketing and sales phase, and things are about to change for us. I could use some prayers on something. Recently, I had a major food distribution company reach out to me, and they want to put my product on their offering. I've got the e-commerce side figured out. As of the last 2 years, I figured out the wholesale and retail side so that I can sell to other coffee shops and gun shops and that stuff. About 2 weeks ago, I got approached, and I've had to go through and figure out the distribution side. No longer will it be a 5-pound bag or a 20-pound box of coffee. They're talking pallets of 5-pound bags and 20-pound boxes. For me, with what I'm doing, 25% to match what Black Rifle is doing with 230 million, I only need to do 5 million. One of my favorite nonprofits is actually here in town. Has anybody heard of the Warrior's Journey? The Warrior's Journey is a veteran nonprofit. They're essentially an umbrella nonprofit. They'll do anything to help a veteran. The cool part about them is that to date, they've saved, the last number, I think it's like 2,200 lives that they've saved with almost a 100% success rate. And they do that, it's all faith-based. They solve the problem, the root. They don't just put a Band-Aid on it. I want to shower them with money, empower them to do more. And then the cool part about Kevin Weaver with the Warrior's Journey is that as we do this, Kevin wants to take the same structure that he does for the Warrior's Journey and wants to replicate it for first responders and veterans. He wants to do that because I've asked him to. I hope to inspire. If any of you are out there looking to start a business, I would love to sit down and tell you what not to do, because I've got the snot kicked out of me the last 8 years. I'm a stubborn country boy who doesn't know the word quit. I'm either going to die trying or it's going to happen. And with the way things are going, I think it's about to take off. I've brought some gifts. Sean reached out and asked if I could have coffee to sell and whatnot. With what I do, I basically, if somebody places an order, I roast it and ship it. So I don't have spare coffee sitting on the shelf. So what I have done is I've built a promo code. If you guys want to write this down, it's FPMC, Federal Prison Medical Center 25. That'll get you 25% off. I've also brought a gift for everybody. Everybody needs a little Jesus, right? Yeah. Well, I've got a big bag, so.
Do that again. Was that Foxtrot?
FP.
Yes, Foxtrot, Fox, Papa, Mike, Charlie.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Right. Appreciate it.
And I didn't realize till this morning it's I presume I got the abbreviation wrong with you guys, but it'll work.
Appreciate it.
Yep. So I did bring some stickers and swag to pass out to everybody if you want some, and I've got a bag full of little Jesus. Would love to share if anybody's got questions. Love to answer any questions if you got. And if you are looking to start a business and you want to sit down on a cup of coffee, if you'll touch base with me, I'll get you my contact and I can help you along the way.
So, as we kind of close, we got our other two speakers coming up. I want to echo what Eric just said. If I were going to start a business, and I may someday, because I like to experiment and try new things, I would sit down with Eric. This guy, through the trenches, and I've known him for 10 years. I know what he's been through, ups and downs and ups and downs. He's learned everything about business ownership as a veteran. This guy is a wealth of knowledge, and I will say this place that he did, he does a podcast. And he invited me out about a month ago, and I went to his new warehouse, and I got to see his coffee roaster. What did it cost? Like, I don't know, was it $50,000? thinking?
The roaster?
Yeah.
The roaster itself, if you were to buy the roaster today, it's $50,000.
Okay, so those of us who like coffee are like, ooh, wouldn't that be cool to roast your own coffee? You better have a lot of money. Because I saw Eric, he's super technical, like he's like a techno junkie. Everything is sharp, everything's polished. He built this. I could go on and on. This guy is amazing. I mean, just say, I have great friends. I count Eric up there as one of the most unique. But his coffee roasting company, he's gone from outsourcing it to doing it himself. Which, if you know about that industry, that's a whole another art. And it's all techno, very, very crafts geared. But please recommend someone who is a veteran, who is going to own a business. This guy, he's in the trenches. He knows the ins and outs of everything practical business. But if you've heard him, and I've been back there kind of choked up too, he's got a huge heart. He cares about veterans and first responders. Those of us who are prior military, we know everybody gets appreciation, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, hey, thanks for your service. But I know too, we're federal law enforcement. And until I started working here 3 years ago, my stepdad was a state trooper and also a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard, so I sort of had that as growing up. But I'm telling you, my heroes are first responders, the EMTs, the firefighters, and the policemen who are out there every day. They got PTSD. Every day they're dealing with trauma. I mean, just showing up for work, you're going to deal with trauma. So I know sometimes we get all the accolades because, hey, you served your... Man, these guys are out in the trenches every day. So Eric has a huge heart for first responders. He does workshops for policemen and firefighters. And if you go to his website, which Got Your Fix Coffee, please, super slick website. I was even going to pull it up. I'm probably pull it up on the screen at lunch so you guys can see it. But again, he figured out how to do all that stuff himself. I couldn't say enough about how much this guy has knowledge and loves to share it to help veteran and first responders. So I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. If you want to come up and get something from Eric, do so. I'm going to pull up slides for our next speaker. So let's do a quick minute, talk to Eric.